The observation deck of the Talons of Pride had been converted into what the Krivoth elders called a cultural exchange zone. Selene Varick called it a playground. The distinction mattered little to the 6 Koth cubs currently arranging themselves in what they clearly believed was a fearsome formation. Rill stood at the center, his silvered fur bristling with concentration. At barely 3 solar cycles old, he was the eldest of the litter and took his responsibilities with the gravity of a seasoned warrior. His amber eyes narrowed to slits, his ears pinned back against his skull, and his lips curled to reveal rows of needle-sharp teeth that would one day grow into the legendary fangs of a full-grown Krivoth. "Hold position," Rill hissed to his littermates in their native tongue, a series of clicks and growls that the translation matrix struggled to render. "Remember what Elder Thrak taught us. The predator stare is our birthright. Our ancestors used it to freeze prey in their tracks across 100 worlds." The 5 younger cubs mimicked his posture with varying degrees of success. Little Keshra's tail kept wagging despite her best efforts, and Vorn sneezed twice, disrupting his intimidating expression. But they held their line, a semicircle of miniature apex predators facing down the strange, soft-skinned creature that had arrived on their vessel 3 weeks prior. Selene stood before them in her standard-issue xenobiologist coveralls, datapad forgotten in her hand. Her brown eyes sparkled with an emotion the cubs couldn't quite identify through their cultural database. Their education had covered fear, submission, and respect, the typical responses to a properly executed predator stare. This expression matched none of those categories. "Oh my God," Selene whispered, pressing her free hand to her chest. "Are you serious right now?" Rill's confidence wavered for a microsecond. The human's vocal pattern suggested distress, but her body language read all wrong. Her shoulders had relaxed rather than tensed, her mouth curved upward instead of downward. Most confusing of all, she was making a high-pitched noise that the translator rendered as squealing. "The stare is working," Rill announced to his siblings, though doubt crept into his voice. "Maintain formation. She is clearly overcome by our ferocity." Elder Thrak had warned them about humans. They were newcomers to the Galactic Coalition, a species that had clawed their way up from a death world so hostile that most civilized races refused to believe the planetary surveys. They had no natural armor, no claws, no venom. Yet somehow, these fragile primates had not only survived but thrived, spreading across their star system with alarming speed. "They are persistence hunters," Thrak had growled during the lesson. "Never underestimate a persistence hunter. They may lack our burst speed, our natural weapons, but they will chase prey until it collapses from exhaustion, and their pack bonds." He had paused, his ears flicking with something that might have been respect. "Their pack bonds are formidable." Selene took a step forward. The cubs intensified their stares, pupils contracting to vertical slits. Rill felt his haunches bunch, ready to hold his ground against this strange not prey, not predator creature. Then Selene dropped to her knees. The formation wavered. This wasn't in the training scenarios. Prey ran or froze. Rival predators retreated or challenged. But this, the human had made herself smaller, more vulnerable, her face now level with theirs. "You guys are trying to be scary, aren't you?" Selene's voice had gone soft, taking on a melodic quality. "You're practicing your big, tough predator faces." She reached out slowly, telegraphing her movement. Rill's training screamed at him to maintain the stare, to hold his ground, to prove his worth as a future hunter. But the human's hand moved with such gentle certainty that he found himself frozen for entirely different reasons than intended. Her fingers touched his nose. The sensation was unlike anything in Rill's experience, warm, soft, carrying the strange salt and earth scent that all humans seem to possess. Then, before his instincts could process what was happening, Selene leaned forward and pressed her lips to the same spot in what her species called a kiss. "You're adorable," she murmured, moving to Keshra next. "Yes, you are, such a fierce little hunter." The formation collapsed entirely. Keshra's tail began wagging at supersonic speeds. Vorn rolled onto his back, exposing his belly in a display of trust that would have horrified Elder Thrak. The other cubs crowded forward, climbing over each other to receive their own nose kisses from the human. Rill sat frozen, his carefully practiced predator stare forgotten. His nose tingled where Selene had touched it. His mind raced through the cultural database, searching for context, for understanding, for any explanation of what had just occurred. "This is not the appropriate response," he managed weakly. Selene laughed, that strange rhythmic breathing sound humans made when experiencing joy, and gathered him into her arms. Rill's body betrayed him utterly, producing a rumbling purr from deep in his chest that he'd only ever made while sleeping in the nest with his littermates. "I'm sorry, sweetie," Selene said, scratching behind his ears in a way that made his back leg twitch involuntarily. "I know you were working very hard on your scary faces, but humans evolved alongside predators too. We've been dealing with big cats with sharp teeth for millions of years." She booped his nose gently. "And we learned something important. The cubs are always cute." "Always cute," Rill repeated, testing the unfamiliar word. The translator provided a definition: small, attractive, endearing, nothing about fear, nothing about respect, nothing about the proper response to an apex predator's dominance display. "So cute," Selene confirmed, now surrounded by all 6 cubs, each demanding attention, scratches, and nose kisses. "The cutest little murder floofs in the entire galaxy." From the observation deck's entrance, Elder Thrak watched the scene with his remaining good eye. Beside him, Captain Vesh, the cub's mother and the ship's tactical officer, made a rumbling sound that might have been amusement. "The human has compromised their training," Thrak observed. "The human has survived 3 weeks aboard a Kryvoth warship and earned the trust of 6 cubs who were explicitly instructed to practice their intimidation techniques on her," Vesh corrected. "Tell me, old friend, which of us could claim the same achievement on a human vessel?" Thrak's tail lashed once, the equivalent of a shrug. "They are a strange species." "They are a pack-bonding species," Vesh said softly, watching her offspring climb over Selene like she was playground equipment. "Perhaps the strangest thing about them is that they extend that instinct to anything that doesn't actively try to kill them, and sometimes even to things that do." On the floor, Rill had given up entirely on dignity and was allowing Selene to rub his belly while she made incomprehensible cooing noises. His siblings had formed a purring pile around her, and the human looked more content than she had since boarding the ship. "We'll need to adjust the training protocols," Thrak admitted. "Or," Vesh suggested, her whiskers twitching with humor, "we accept that humans have already weaponized something far more dangerous than any predator stare." "What's that?" "The ability to make anything with a face their friend." In the pile of cubs and human, Rill felt his eyes growing heavy, the warmth and safety of the moment overwhelming his determination to be a proper, fierce predator. Tomorrow, he decided drowsily, he would practice the stare again. Tomorrow he would be intimidating. But today he would accept nose kisses from the strange human who had looked at 6 young hunters trying their hardest to be scary and had seen only something worth cherishing. Today, Rill would be cute.